Ah, the wind. Riding aboard the Grand Cipher, soaring across yet another cloud bank, I felt a pang of envy. The wind goes where it pleases, and it arrives when it may, a quality I have long sought to adapt to my fighting style. Here I stood in comparison, shackled to my duties as captain of a knightly order. Oft have I imagined the brighter futures I might have discovered, if only I were faster, more like the gale. Had I risen like a storm front, I could have prevented wars. Had I rushed like a squall, I could have circumvented tragedy. But as the wind continues flowing forward, so too does the passage of time. Idle ponderings would change nothing. I had exchanged my freedom for the greater good. Quietly, I repeated a promise I made long ago. Henceforth, I shall endeavor to combat adversity, so much as I can, for as long as I live. Happily, this hasn't been a hard course to follow, for it runs parallel to the path of the crew, gracious hosts and, on occasion, lively companions.
I want you to broaden your horizons for the betterment of our kingdom.
I now see the wisdom and kindness behind King Carl's decree. For it was my journey aboard the Grand Cipher that taught me how to cast control to the winds, to ride unbound and at the mercy of the gales. When I was a boy, my best friend's parents were killed by wyverns. After witnessing the depth of his grief, I decided I would become a knight. I would protect the kingdom from monsters and the tragedies they wrought. But there was one massive wall standing between me and my goal. It was not aptitude, for I had some talent with the sword, but the station of my birth. At that time, Fiendrock was a kingdom run by its aristocracy. Commoners were restricted to a life of labor, and the knightly orders were composed entirely of noble houses. Immediately, I was rejected, told that I could offer my sweat to the crown, but not my blood, for it lacked the proper lineage. I was not deterred. Who was to say that our stone-walled villages could not breed warriors as well as our gold-gilded courts? I studied, I trained, and I worked harder than any man had ever worked to become a knight. In the end, my efforts bore fruit. Siegfried, who at the time was still in the service of the king, understood my plight and changed the course of history. He allowed me into the order of Black Dragon Knights. But uneasy rests the commoner with new acquired titles. The nobility would only be too eager to dismiss me over the slightest misstep and prevent the chivalrous orders from being contaminated by peasant filth. I could not fail. The weight of my people and the future of the kingdom spurred me. I had to become the perfect knight. My ascension was not easy. If given a choice, I might have chosen a different path. But when I had at last emerged from the crucible of trial and tragedy, I was a changed man. I was the captain of the White Dragon Knights. My mentor, Siegfried, was captain of the Black Dragon Knights. He once saved the kingdom by killing the dreaded dragon, Fafnir, and vouched for me when no other would. So when my friend and counselor was convicted of regicide, I felt betrayed. Siegfried's downfall thrust upon me the leadership of the newly dubbed White Dragon Knights, and I swore to bend all my power toward bringing him to justice. In hindsight, this anger was misplaced, foolish. There was no reason for Siegfried to assassinate the king. I should have deduced Royal Consul Isabella's hidden coup, long before turning on a man whom I knew to be steadfast and honorable. My mind trembled under the pressure of newfound responsibility. It howled and grieved for the loss of a beloved king. I know that this amounts to no more than an excuse. It was my flash judgment that drove me away from Siegfried when he needed me most. Had I been left to my own devices, the conspiracy may have never been brought to light. But I had Vayne and Percival at my side, and, though hunted by all the country, Siegfried himself infiltrated Isabella's cabal and alerted me to their treachery. I may owe the biggest debt, however, to the sky-faring captain, whose aid was instrumental in restoring peace to Fiendrog. After the dust had settled, His Majesty King Carl decreed that I explore other countries so I could gain experience befitting my new station. Thus, I became another crewmate aboard the Grand Cypher. Since then, I have visited various lands. I have seen myriad peoples and their responses to numerous threats. I have learned many things and gained many new teachers, and as they have given freely to me, someday I hope to give back to them. But there are yet countless leagues to travel, so on I sail across the skies, seeking the strength and wisdom necessary for a true leader. Zega Grande Skydom. How much time had passed since our arrival here? With our battles against the Church of Avia and the pacification of many primals, it certainly felt like a lifetime. But now that things were a little quieter, we were content to return to our usual bread and butter, satisfying requests from locals. Though the crew was accustomed to quests of all sorts, one day, there came a demand that left us puzzled.
Sorry for the confusion, folks. This request isn't for the whole crew. It's an escort mission for Lancelot, specifically.
Me? But why? There were few in this Skydom who had even heard of my name. Curious, I asked about Hans, the man who had posted the quest.
Oh, you don't know him? Seems like he was real familiar with you. Anyways, he's a butler for the Lord of Grassgard.
I hesitated. There was nothing I could do that another crewmate couldn't accomplish just as well. Acknowledging a specific request for me felt discourteous in a way.
You're not at your fancy-ass court anymore, okay? On our ship, you don't have to worry about rubbing anyone's ego the wrong way. If you're interested in the job, just take it.
Though he may not have been tactful, Eugen was, as ever, a fount of wisdom. Very well, then. I shall hear what this Hans has to say.
It is a pleasure to meet you. I am Hans, butler to his lordship.
The next day, an elderly man ambled onto the Grand Cypher, leaning heavily on his cane. But looking into his eyes, I sensed deep wisdom and a sharp mind. The pleasure is mine. I am Lancelot, a Skyfarer. Forgive me for not accepting your request at once, but I would like more details before returning an answer.
Yes, well, his lordship Ludwin is in need of an escort.
Hans explained. Ludwin was a lord of Grassgard, and he was looking for a mythical sword passed down through his family for generations. So far, his search had led them to a snowy peak, but nearby monsters made the trip too dangerous to risk without protection. Does your lord not employ a personal guard?
He does, but as this quest is for personal gain, he believes that commanding their service would be an abuse of power. However, the lords of Grossgard have never been gifted in the martial arts. So if we head to the mountains without a decent sword arm, tragedy will surely befall us.
But what led you to seek my sword arm specifically?
Well, we knew we needed a highly experienced Skyfarer. The mission is dangerous, far too dangerous for any amateur. But perhaps more importantly, his lordship is quite the fan of yours, Sir Lancelot.
A fan? My voice cracked in surprise.
Yes, you are known as a knight exemplar, talented in both combat and scholarship. How fortunate that this very same Lancelot would come to our land and proffer his services.
Whatever accounts you've heard of me were surely exaggerated.
And so humble. Lord Ludwin will be overjoyed when he hears that we've secured your aid. The Honorable Sir Lancelot to protect us. What could be better? So, will you accept?
Though this idolatry did not sit well with me, I could see no reason to refuse. From what I'd heard, Ludwin seemed an honorable man. Besides, there was much a Lord of this Skydom could teach me. Very well. On behalf of our crew, I accept your request. Hans and Ludwin were waiting for me at the foot of Mount Nagelith.
It is an honor and a privilege to meet you, Sir Lancelot of Fiendrock. Hans has probably already told you who I am, but allow me to formally introduce myself. I am Ludwin, Lord Protector of Grossgard.
Though his aura was imposing and befitting of a lord, he also felt courteous and down to earth. The honor is mine. Though I am now no more than a Skyfarer, I swear to protect you and yours with my life, should it come to it.
Well, whatever your title, I am glad to have your aid.
Ludwin was beaming. Hans had told me of his excessive devotion, but it was another thing seeing it in person. I suddenly felt I wasn't quite sure how to conduct myself. Right. So you believe a family heirloom is hidden among these peaks?
Not the sword itself, but the first of a series of trials that shall reveal the blade in due time.
I see. And what is the first trial?
There's a record somewhere around here which should detail the whereabouts of the sword. A little game of my family's, if you will. But on second thought, perhaps a great knight such as yourself has nobler things to do than this frivolous treasure hunt in the snow. Yes, perhaps we had better call it...
My lord.
Hans was stern, more mentor than butler.
The ancestral trials are not frivolous. Each one holds an important meaning. Those same challenges taught your father how to reign. Skies rest his soul.
Yes, you're quite right. Forgive me, Hans. So, with that settled, I shall count on you, Sir Lancelot, to provide the muscle. For as you may know, I am sadly little more than a statesman.
I am yours to command. With that, I unsheathed my twin blades and started our quest. The white dragon unfurls its wings. Come. I'll go on ahead and make sure the path is secure. For your own safety, try not to stray.
Oh, do let me know if I can be of assistance.
My lord, let's leave the fighting to the professionals, shall we?
Oh, yes, of course. Well then, Sir Lancelot, do what you do best. The bridge is down! Now what will we do?
Let's search for another path. This mountain is vast. I doubt this is the only trail.
feels like a way forward.
The footing seems a bit treacherous. Please watch your step.
God! Monster!
Let's go! Stay behind me. I'll deal with this. I think that was the last of the monsters.
What glorious form, Sir Lancelot. It is a pleasure to watch you work.
If you're unhurt, my lord, we had better proceed.
Wide open! Away with you! You're through! No escape!
To these ranged pop doodles. Do be careful, Sir Lancelot.
Don't worry. I'll close that distance in a heartbeat. You're finished! Is this a dead end?
No. Look! A chest!
Wait, this monster.
Get behind me! A giant eyeball! I think I've read about this monster! Nazarbanju!
Correct. Our crew has faced it once before.
Ah, such daring do, brave Lancelot!
I might understood. I believe we're safe now. One blade for truth, one for honor.
Impressive! The Twin Fang prodigy does not disappoint.
Thank you, my lord. I hadn't done much during our climb, so the praise caught me unawares. Shall we check this chest? It could contain the record you seek.
Yes? Let's see what she's holding.
The young lord opened the box. A rather dry affair, as we already knew what to expect.
And here it is!
In his hands, he held a flaking tome, its pages warped and yellowed by age.
This takes me back. Once upon a winter, I sought out that very book with Ludwin's father.
And now it's been passed to me. But this...
As Ludwin flitted through the pages, his face twisted into expressions of greater and greater perplexity.
I can't read this at all. Is this some sort of code?
I suppressed the urge to take a glance myself. My duty was to protect, not translate. In the end, it was Hans who broke the silence.
If it pleases his lordship, shall I offer a hint?
Ludwin shook his head.
No, this is a trial that I must conquer myself. And on that note, I believe you are dismissed, Sir Lancelot. I thank you for your services today, and payment will be made forthwith.
Understood. If ever you need my help again, do not hesitate to call. Thus, my private escort mission ended without much fanfare. And yet, I had a feeling that our paths would cross once again. At least, I hoped that they would. There was something about Ludwin. His earnestness, perhaps, and his love for his comrades that resonated with me.
Need something?
My premonition proved correct.
His lordship finds himself in need of your assistance once more.
Hans's voice was almost apologetic. What troubles him?
You remember the record we found on our previous trek, don't you?
I nodded. The Lord of Grossgard was searching for a family heirloom, and this record detailed its whereabouts. However, the directions were written in code, which Ludwin had yet to decipher.
He told me, and I quote, "Hans, don't you dare bother the charming and brave Lancelot over a mere trifle." But he hasn't made any headway on his own, and I've no doubt he's secretly yearning for your aid.
I looked at the butler with some confusion. Hans, I recall you saying you'd already completed the trial with Ludwin's father.
Indeed.
Then your assistance would be far more valuable than mine.
Come now, it is a butler's duty to serve his liege's best interests, and Lord Ludwin's shall be best served with my silence.
I suppose Ludwin would never grow if Hans simply led him to the answers. Better that we pieced out the puzzle together. Very well. I accept your request.
I thank you on behalf of his lordship.
Now I was beginning to grasp at the deeper meaning behind these tests. Hans took me to Grossgard. As an artist's soul is mirrored in their brushstrokes, so too is a lord's character reflected in the state of their dominion. Everywhere, you could see Ludwin's gentle touch. From the full fields, to the content faces of the farmers, to the laughter of children and adult alike that filled the air.
What do you think of our humble land?
I tore my eyes away from the bright orchards and turned to Hans. It's beautiful. It may not be large or bustling, but I've never been to such a peaceful dukedom.
I'm sure his lordship will be pleased to hear that assessment.
Suddenly, I found myself curious. Earlier, you said that the ancestral trials would teach Ludwin how to rule. But judging from what I've seen here, he is already a capable lord. What more would you like him to learn? Hans smiled tenderly, as a grandfather might when speaking of a beloved grandchild.
I should have known an avid scholar like yourself would read between the lines. Make no mistake, Ludwin is not a perfect leader yet, but it is not my place to discuss his flaws.
Then tell me this. Are his flaws related to his family's inability to fight?
Let us call it a starting thread, but the full tapestry is so much more.
I decided not to pry. I already had the information I needed to guide Ludwin through his trial.
Sir Lancelot? I don't remember sending for you.
Of course, the Lord was surprised to see me. Although friendly, I was a rogue element in a world where this man had control of nearly everything. I have come at the request of Hans. He would like me to assist you in deciphering the tome.
I see. Hans does have a knack for meddling in his lord's affairs, but I welcome you all the same because, to tell the truth, I'm getting absolutely nowhere.
I smiled, despite myself. It was nice to meet a noble who wasn't spilling over with pride. Hans beckoned me to his desk, and I leaned over the old tome.
What do you make of it? This must be child's play for a famed warrior scholar.
He looked at me with expectant eyes. I'm sorry, but I can't decipher this. We will need to enlist the help of an expert. Expectation turned to astonishment.
Lancelot, though you fight like a storm, your mind is as clear as the stillest of ponds. I can't believe you'd need to ask for assistance.
Can't you? Every second I spend on the battlefield is a second away from the library. Ludwin hesitated a while longer, but when I strode to the door and held it open for him, he sighed and relented. No one in either of our circles was well versed in ciphers, but that was a matter of small concern. I knew an information broker. Zothba put me in touch with a language scholar who delivered a key to us within a fortnight.
Well, I'll be. The clue was in the names of my ancestors.
Ludwin stood up behind his desk and stretched, and the lines of care and worry melted from his face. He must have had many sleepless nights poring over the withered pages of the tome alone.
Thank you, Sir Lancelot. I can finally read the damn thing. It's only a matter of time now until I find the sword.
It was my pleasure. I look forward to news of your success. But I already knew. Before the unearthing of the blade, Hans would come to visit me one last time. I was half right. It was not Hans, but Ludwin himself who showed up at our doorstep.
I deciphered the record, and I know where the sword is buried.
He was so excited he completely forwent pleasantries.
I know I should go alone, with Hans of course, but the tome says we must fly to Skyworm Valley, which is riddled with monsters. It's a terrible place for a lord to be made into dragon kibble.
I knew what he wanted me to say. Very well. Please, allow me to accompany you.
Really? Wonderful! I mean, only if you wish.
This must have been the flaw Hans was alluding to. Ludwin was afraid of his own power. He dreaded the responsibilities that came with leadership. The lords of Grossgard were not warriors and hadn't been for generations. They depended on their subjects for protection, but as I'd learned, Ludwin was loath to do so. Up until now, this has not posed a problem. Small skirmishes were all that troubled the peace of his dukedom. But what would happen should a great war march on his borders? Would his honor eventually spur him to the front lines? To death? The place of a lord and general is with the rear guard. There, they must order the battle and conduct diplomatic affairs. But it is hard, sitting and conversing in safety while your soldiers are risking their lives. As captain of the White Dragons, I knew this better than anyone. You feel as if every death is on your head. At last, I had come to fully understand Ludwin. If these trials, as Hans said, could help him come into his own, then I would do everything in my power to guide him to victory. The day arrived. Ludwin, Hans, myself, and a few more compatriots met outside of Skyworm Valley.
Lancelot, thank you for coming, but I wasn't aware there would be others with you. Who are these people?
He looked with wide eyes at the rest of the crew, whom he had never met before. I have heard terrible monsters lurk in these parts. Alone, I would not have been able to guarantee your safety. These are my crewmates, each one a warrior of great strength and honor.
Not that I don't appreciate their presence, but Sir Lancelot, surely a knight of your caliber could cut through these beasts with both hands tied behind your back.
Chance, my lord, is as unpredictable as the weather. A wise skyfarer prays for a gentle current, but prepares for a vicious storm. Ludwin nodded thoughtfully.
Very well. Best I leave the knighting to the knights.
The white dragon unfurls its wings. Come. Are you ready to begin the trial?
It's now or never. Let's go.
Hey, look! The welcome squad!
Our attacks aren't working! Is this part of the trial?
Wait, I remember. The record said a single link does not a chain make.
So fighting one at a time won't work? Let's hit it all at once.
Very well. On Lancelot's mark.
Into the fray! I'll follow!
You've met your match!
It's working.
Fine display.
Very clever, Vayne.
Siegfried called me clever.
Silence. If not for Lord Ludwin's counsel, you would have been lost.
I'm glad you're with me.
Did it!
Aw, Lance.
I only wish I'd have been of more use.
Don't worry about it. We've all got stuff we're good and bad at.
There is no shame in seeking help from others. It builds trust.
Yes, trust. That is all we ask from you, Lord Ludwin.
Looks like we've reached the second trial. There are so many spirits around.
We best fight in formation.
Thank you,
Similar to the previous trial.
Very well. Leave the vanguard to me.
Go team! We're gonna be so in sync.
Oh, wait. I'm about to see 4 legendary knights in battle at once. 4 keepers to behold.
Name.
Wide open! Plenty at him!
You are a natural.
Aw, I appreciate that.
Blind attacks aren't working. We need to coordinate. Stay focused.
On my mark.
Wide open. Try to keep up. On go. Out of my sight.
Feel their fate. It's as if we planned that.
Quite right. You're through.
Follow.
You're mine.
Meet your doom. No rest until we've won.
Of course. Stay focused. Parry this. Give it. Wide open. Surrender. Strike as one.
You go no further, this power.
Lay it on him,
After you.
coward.
Let's keep it moving. Bold of you to order me.
Focus on the dangers ahead. Stay focused. Parry this.
Forward.
Almost there.
For the second trial.
done.
Too easy, Lancelot.
Not at all. We've only made smooth progress thanks to the team.
We fought alongside each other for years. This was nothing.
What is that thing? It's huge!
Jared is a dead soul, given
Just
form
what I
by
need.
evil spirits.
The dead? I never signed up to fight the dead! Retreat! Everyone! Retreat!
Remain calm. We can handle it.
You took down all those monsters! That was live!
Well, the chest awaits you, my lord. Open it and claim your prize.
Ah, yes! Of course.
After this, it's back to training. After numerous trials, we arrived at last in front of a lone treasure chest.
If it hadn't been for your help, Sir Lancelot, I wouldn't have made it this far. I fear I won't ever be able to repay this debt.
There is no debt between us. But do not trouble yourself about me. Look now to your prize. With trembling hands, Ludwin undid the clasps of the chest and lifted from it a sheathed sword.
The blade of my forebears. It's, lighter than I thought it would be.
Carefully, he drew forth the weapon.
What's the meaning of this? It's just a hilt!
Ludwin was the very picture of distress. But I saw through the riddle at once. A sword with no blade. A weapon that could neither defend nor slay. It was a message, left by the first lords of Grosgard for their scions. Gently, I cleared my throat. Perhaps, my lord, it was meant to be a hilt, and a hilt alone.
What? Why would my ancestors bequeath unto me a hunk of metal?
You will find the answer to this puzzle, as you have to all the others. Slowly, Ludwin's grip on the blade relaxed, and he began to turn it over in his hands.
Fine. I'll give it a bit more thought.
Sir Lancelot, you really think his lordship will be able to figure it out?
On our way back, Hans fell in beside me to take whispered counsel. What does your heart tell you? You have been at his side all these years. Hans made no reply, but I saw the shadow pass from his face and a soft light come into his eyes.
Good day. Let's see.
The third day after we had returned, Ludwin came calling.
I've got it! The meaning behind our family heirloom!
With great reverence, he laid his hand on the hilt, which was sheathed at his hip.
At last, the pieces of the puzzle are gathered and the picture is whole. The tome in the mountains, the message in code, the chest guarded by monsters, and the sword without a blade.
Ludwin laughed dryly.
Sir Lancelot, I love this land, passed down to me by my forebears. I love its gentle rills, its rolling hills, its honest laborers, and its noble warriors. I would do anything to keep them from harm.
But he could not fight his own battles. He spoke of one such conflict that occurred within his dukedom. He was forced to flee to safer grounds, while the blood of his people mingled with the dirt. The guilt ever gnawed at him, robbing him of his happiness and repose. In the midst of his troubles, Hans told him of a legendary blade. The young lord grew convinced that this sword would bestow upon him the strength he needed to protect his own.
I wanted to be everything for my people. A great warrior like you, and also a wise general, and a benevolent lord. But now I see that one person does not make a country. I am the hilt which guides the sword.
And the people are the blade, which are its strength. Leader and follower. One is lost without the other. Emotion stirred within me, and I drew a trembling breath. My lord, we are more alike than you think. There was a time when I blamed myself every time I lost a knight. I tried to shoulder the burdens of my kingdom alone, thinking I was protecting everyone. But I was wrong, for my fall would have meant the ruin of all. Ludwin nodded.
You're right. I'm done tearing myself into pieces, trying to play 100 roles at once. My people are counting on me to guide them, and so I shall, with this sword.
He drew the hilt from its sheath. Look to your own duties and trust your comrades to fulfill theirs. That is all we can do.
I won't ever forget this lesson, Sir Lancelot. I swear upon my ancestors that from this hour henceforth I shall dedicate myself to becoming the fair and wise lord that Grosgard deserves.
The clouds of doubt were gone from Ludwin's eyes. He had found his path at last. And I had been reminded of something important. It was true that leadership and responsibility acted as shackles, but they were also anchors, providing safety and stability on a sea of uncertainty. Months later, word reached me concerning the Lord Ludwin of Grosgard. It was said he had no great strength of arms, but his wit and will were edged sharper than steel. Under his rule, the people lived in peace, and their fields were ever gold. But the young lord never accepted praise for his deeds. He always spoke of the loyalty of his subjects and the wisdom of a foreign knight. It seems his idolatry of me still hasn't changed. But as Ludwin has grown into his title, perhaps I too should learn to bear my mantle with pride. I am Lancelot, captain of the White Dragons, and son of Beedrock.
Please come again.